Hey everybody, thanks again for joining me. So today, or in this video, we are continuing on with the WWF Series 3 review. We just completed the first six figures out of Series 3. We are going to look at the last six figures from Series 3. Once again, this was the 1992 release, the first of the 92 releases. Once we get to 1992 to 1994, you are going to find multiple releases each year. So, in the first video, we looked at Ultimate Warrior, Brutus Beefcake, Macho Man, not Macho King, Randy Savage. We looked at Hulk Hogan, Brutus Beefcake, and Sergeant Slaughter. So, in this video, we're going to look at one tag team, and, well, you really can't call them a tag team because it's not dual card, but we'll get to that figure when we get to them. So, for this particular video, I would like to start off with Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado. So this guy has the Texas Twister. The Von Erich family, they're like right there with the Rhodes family, or I can never pronounce their name, but like the Wild Samoans, for example, they probably have like a dozen people or so that have wrestled from that family professionally. You know, Yokozuna obviously is probably the most successful because, you know, he was a multiple-time heavyweight champion. He was a tag team champion. He was Royal Rumble champion, highlighted multiple WrestleManias. So, yeah, Rodney, last name I can't pronounce. So I'm just gonna say Yokozuna, or I'm gonna say Wild Samoan family. I can't. I don't know their last name. I don't know how to pronounce it, and I'm not going to embarrass myself trying to. Texas Tornado, he is one of only two action figures, though, that had this dual extended arm right there with Tatanka. So a lot of figures, they obviously have the right extended arm, and, you know, it's just like a simple, well, this one doesn't do it, but it's supposed to be, you know, you twist the body, bam, you spins forward. So this one, overall, you know, look is good, nearly mint, but because the waist is loose, you know, you can't really classify this as a mint figure. But that's all it is. The Texas twist is just, you know, that right there. Kerry Von Erich, I really don't know a lot. I mean, obviously the family name is important. Texas Tornado was an Intercontinental Champion. You know, I remember watching him as a kid. Do I actually remember any of the storylines or any of the matches he had? That I did not. And I'm trying to think who he defeated to become Intercontinental Champion. So I want to say Mr. Perfect. I could be wrong, but if I recall correctly, I think Texas Tornado defeated Mr. Perfect to become Intercontinental Champion. And I think maybe like a week later, a couple weeks, I don't remember, but I think Kurt Hennig, you know, once again defeated Texas Tornado to recapture the Intercontinental Championship. A very popular figure. You know, I listed, you know, several of these, and, you know, they seem to sell pretty well. I mean, I might have to list it a few times before it sells, but I mean, they do sell eventually, which is great. It's a good-looking figure. Again, if you want to complete Series 3, or if you just want to complete your favorite figures, Texas Tornado, he was a beloved character, and I don't know, I'm trying to think of a little different tag team matches, like Survivor Series matches, where you have like Texas Tornado and, you know, the Ultimate Warrior, you know, guys like that kind of on one side, and just a beautiful-looking figure. Again, that unique dual pose makes him a unique figure, but that's all I have for this figure. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of backstories, or because I didn't have Series 3 as a kid, I don't have any history playing with the figure. Is he a good figure? Aesthetically, yes. He's probably a bottom tier figure for me as far as playability. I don't know, 92 figures or so, 95, whatnot, if you want to include mailways. I'd probably rate him somewhere in the 60 range. I mean, I'm just guessing off the top of my head. I mean, to be honest, I could do a countdown and he could be like 31. I don't know. But Texas Tornado, regardless, he's a good figure. And the man I had just been talking about, Curt Hennig. So, sadly, due to injury, Mr. Perfect didn't have as much or as long as a career in WWF as he probably should have. I mean, this man had been like AWA champion for like a year, prior to coming to WWF. And, one of my first memories of Mr. Perfect, I think, was the 1990 Royal Rumble. And Hulk Hogan has just thrown him over the ropes to win his first of 2 consecutive Royal Rumbles. And when Hogan threw him over the ropes, he didn't just gently go over the ropes. That man went seriously flying on over the ropes and over the turnbuckles and everything. And just, I'm curious if that was all Curt Hennig, doing that, because I'm surprised he didn't severely injure himself on that fall. Avec Love, I don't know. I think this is, this ain't Spanish. This is another French card. And it's pretty incredible how many foreign cards I have. Yeah, you're going to find your Spanish cards and your French cards and your American cards, etc. But I didn't realize I had as many as I do. Again, it's all about price. Do you want this on a French card for $110, or do you want it on an American card for $275? That's how I look at it. But, well, it looks like he's from Minnesota, so that explains exactly why he would originate in AWA, right there in his hometown. I mentioned Curt Hennig. Again, I'm trying to think who he won his title from. Here is just one sad story, because Mr. Perfect really was one of the greatest wrestlers of the 1990s, probably even the 1980s. He used to have these promos, like different sporting events or whatnot, where he would do everything perfect. And incredible wrestler. When last 2 in the Royal Rumble, which is awesome. Always competitive. Intercontinental champion. One of the best. Again, he lost it to Texas Tornado, but recaptured it quickly. I'm trying to think who he defeated to become Intercontinental champion. So, I'm trying to think. It wasn't Ultimate Warrior. I don't think so. I'd have to look it up. Trying to keep dates and different matches and stuff. It's just a tough call. But these videos are supposed to be reviews of the actual figures. So backstories, I get it, aren't really important, but they're important to me to add a little bit something different to the video. So just another one of those figures that, you roll them up, slap them down. Right arm is basic, stationary. You have quite a few figures that are like this that I don't like. So, Crush from Series 7, and then his re-release in Series 11. Scott Steiner. There's 2 versions of Mr. Perfect in Series 3 and 8. Yellow and then the blue version. Both have this pose. I think if it was both left arms were out further, if both arms were out like this left arm, it would be solid. But because the right arm is in further, I don't like that. Or they could have gone vice versa and had both arms at this length. I think either one would have worked, but the difference in extension of the arm, it kind of ruins the overall figure for me. Still, just an absolutely awesome figure. Highly collectible, I don't want to say rare. You can't find a Mr. Perfect figure very often, but he's a $40 to $45 figure. Generally, when I get these figures in and I resell them, I don't try to break the bank. I'm like, look, I paid this much money for them. I'll sell them for about that price. So I normally sell them for around $25, $30. And sometimes, like I said, I might pay $30, but I might sell it for 25. Reason being is I probably bought other items in that lot, so I'm okay taking a little bit of a cut on certain figures and earning profit off the others. But so $40 figure I normally sell for 25. I just don't like when a lot of people shortchange me, like offering $10 for a pretty solid figure. I'm like, no. Mr. Perfect, again, another must-have out of Series 3. And realistically, I would say almost every figure out of Series 3 is a must-have. There's a couple figures that I probably would say, I'd pass on. If I had a certain set of money that I could allocate towards purchasing different figures. And one of said figures is Greg Valentine. Here's the funny thing about Greg Valentine. As a kid, very familiar with the character. I saw him wrestle like crazy. But that was in the 1990s. I was very unfamiliar with the Greg Valentine from 1980s, where you're talking about Intercontinental Champion or fighting Tito Santana for the Intercontinental Championship. Someone who was a tag team champion with Brutus Beefcake. Just a very popular character of the 80s. But in the 1990s, to me, watching him, he was just someone there. He was, someone that come into a Royal Rumble and would just stay there for a long time and how is this guy not being tossed out? Like, I was not super impressed with Greg Valentine. I was not a huge fan. I didn't hate him or anything. He wasn't one of those people that really stood out. He doesn't have the type of enthusiasm that you would get from like an Ultimate Warrior. Great talker, great, promoter like Hulk Hogan, etc. Just a very quiet man who just went about his business, and he did it as well as anybody. Nowadays, watching a lot of shoot videos come from Greg Valentine, and I absolutely love what this man has to say and a lot of the backstories that he has, especially in reference to other wrestlers and, how they were in the locker room and, his experiences. He was actually with Yokozuna in, what was it? I can't remember the year. So Yokozuna was about 34 years old when he died, and he died in Japan. And I think that night he had wrestled with Greg Valentine, or they were in the same hotel. And I think Greg Valentine either found him, or again, he was in the same hotel with him when he died at age 34. But Greg Valentine, he's still around. Just a true legend of the WWF. And I'm trying to see if this one comes with a card. It does not. So this one comes with the Hammer Slammer. I generally just wish that they would just keep these figures with all with the same name and not having to change it up. But what they're doing, they're trying to incorporate the wrestler, either the wrestler's name or maybe their finisher or something into the actual action of the feature. So another figure that comes with the right extended arm, and they all have that same pose. I like that when you do this, that the arm kind of pushes back out, so it actually gives you that punch. I don't know what it's called. I always called it, especially when you have the Series 2 Greg Valentine from LJN, where his left arm is up. I always called it, kind of like dropping a hammer. And it was just a very simple move. You either jump off the top buckle, punch someone in the chest or face or something, or just kind of roll them against the ropes and just kind of fall into them. They'd be laying down and they were just, that's what I would call dropping the hammer. I get it. That's not what that means. That's just what that means to me. So, Greg Valentine has the hammer on the back of his trunks. With this figure, they incorporated the knee brace. So, that was obviously very popular. When Hasbro came out with their more recent Mattel Retros came out with their recent Rhythm and Blues, black-haired Greg Valentine. To me, that is, and I actually had a custom of that figure, Hasbro, long before they came out with that, before Retros came out with theirs. But it's just a very popular figure. And it's not so much that Greg Valentine was a bad character, or that he portrayed the whole Elvis look so poorly, or just looked very odd with black hair and all that. I think it was simply more coveted by fans simply because it was a action figure that was supposed to have been made, but then the duel broke up, and you didn't have a need to create a rhythm and blues tag team or create a rhythm and blues Greg Valentine. So there's only like one real prototype that exists. I think Matt Cardona or someone like that has that figure. I'm trying to think. If it's not Matt Cardona, again, I don't know. There are a couple podcasters out there that talk about, there are different action figure lines that they own and stuff. And yeah, I think he paid like $40,000 for the original prototype. And I'm like, that's insane. Again, I don't care how much money I make in this life. I can win the lottery tomorrow. And have a net pay of $2 billion in my account. I mean, $40,000 for a 4-inch piece of plastic. You got to be smart with how you spend, right? And not one of my favorite figures. Just holding him and kind of talking about him and everything in the history of Greg Valentine. I do enjoy the figure. There's no doubt. But if I'm going to go out and spend top dollar on Greg Valentine, this wouldn't be one of those characters I would really gravitate towards. So, Greg Valentine is number 9 out of 12 figures. This is another French card, and I think I have 2 of these, as a matter of fact. So I do have 2 carded Coco Wares. This is just the one I keep with my main display. French card. And as I said, Coco Ware, to me, is nothing more than a jobber. High energy with Owen Hart, but come on, Owen Hart was a great superstar. More of appreciation for that cat later on as an adult than I did as a kid. But we'll talk about Owen once we get to Series 7. As far as Coco Ware himself, did I like this guy as a kid? Absolutely. With the little dance and everything, coming with the little pet and everything. I thought that was really awesome as a kid. But man, going back and watching a lot of his matches, his Royal Rumble introductions and stuff like that, I'm like, this guy is horrible. This guy is like less than a Barry Horowitz. And you remember guys like Barry Horowitz and even 1-2-3 Kid for that matter. They were jobbers until they did something amazing in ring and basically changed their careers. More successful for 1-2-3 Kid, obviously. Not as much for Barry Horowitz, but Coco Ware, to me, when they say wrestling superstars from LJN, and then getting another figure for WWF, he just, to me, is not your mega superstar. He's someone that's on the roster, but not anybody that was super impressive that I think should deserve to get all of these mega action figures. And he gets some of the best action figures out there. And a lot of it has to do with the bird accessories. So basically any figure that comes with an accessory, you already know I'm one of those guys who are going to gravitate towards that particular figure. Just because I kind of feel like on card, whether you're looking at LJNs, when you're looking at Hasbro's, even the Mattel Retros. The Mattel Retros I acquired regardless. But if I was starting over, tag teams and figures that come with accessories are going to be at the top of my list because they always seem to provide the most expensive action figures out there. Another figure that comes with the dual legs, kind of like the Rockers with Coco Ware, it's okay. I understand the need to make this particular character with fused legs. I'm not a fan. To any toy collector out there, there's so many fans out there, so many of us that are making these videos that are constantly telling, makers, stop with the fused legs. They're not a good pose. They serve no purpose whatsoever. You could have easily extended arms, given them like from this series, you could have chosen Bruce Beefcake or, Big Boss Man or something. you can use other modes. A good looking figure overall, very simple, nothing super flashy. Coco Ware, I don't know. I really don't have a lot of memories of this character. There's actually a really awesome SD Jones repaint that I saw. Yeah, I think they did away with the sunglasses and just kind of, I don't know if it was like a SD Jones molded head or if they just reused the same Coco Ware. But that's one thing I'm looking at acquiring, is getting a repaint of Coco to make it that SD Jones. I'm going for the red shirt, but I like the Hawaiian shirt better. But anyways, Coco Ware. And where did I? Oh, here it is. The accessory, I mean, this one obviously is a custom because it's like super huge in comparison to the original. But I've got quite a few of these, either custom or original size birds. So, not a major hindrance for this particular figure. Alright. The last two figures include a tag team. On single card, of course. The first we're looking at is Typhoon. So, they finally decided to come out with a Tugboat figure. And again, like your Rhythm and Blues Greg Valentine, like your Mega Maniac Brutus Beefcake, and your Tugboat, those are three figures that Hasbro was planning on making, and then the whole detail was scrapped. And then most recently, they did come out with a Tugboat on Wave 3 for the Mattel Retros. Horrendous figure. Very much despise it. And once I do those Mattel Retro reviews, I'm going to explain why. Especially with a lot of figures whose legs kick straight out. I'm like, they're becoming probably my most hated figures now. What Hasbro did with Earthquake, and Bam Bam Bigelow, Earthquake, Typhoon, they all have the exact same body pose. So Typhoon simply comes with Tidal Wave. That is his action feature. And, again, just like Sergeant Slaughter and so many others, just a very, very simple slamming motion. So Tugboat was one of those guys who were supposed to be in the corner of Hulk Hogan, and then he decided to turn on Hogan, join up with Earthquake. They formed Natural Disasters, and later on, of course, Big Boss Man became a good guy and was basically in the corner of Hogan during his matchup. I believe it was with Earthquake, if I'm not mistaken. So figures like Earthquake and Typhoon, they can stand on their own, but you always got to kind of like extend their feet like super wide to kind of balance themselves out. You can't just keep them straight up and expect them to stand up all the time. So that kind of sucks. And really that is the only negative I would have about these particular figures, because I think overall look and playability is perfect. Their larger size makes them really fun to use, and Natural Disasters, when they became tag team champions, they really were one of the very few tag teams that I felt like could hold those titles forever. Hey, you get them in 1990 and you want to wrestle for 20 years, guess what? You're not dropping those titles until 2010. Why? Because their sizes were so massive. I just found it very difficult to have anyone that could really match up with them. You couldn't put the Bushwhackers up against Natural Disasters and think that you're going to get something special. Bushwhackers might come in and hold their own for a while, but they weren't defeating, these two titans. That just wasn't going to happen. I think they eventually dropped their titles to Legion of Doom, which, if you're going to drop them to a tag team, Legion of Doom are really the only guys buff enough and strong enough that I felt like could really match up with, the Natural Disasters. Maybe Heart Foundation would have been good competition, but no. One squash from either Quake or Earthquake or Typhoon, and you guys were finished off. So that is the Typhoon figure. Again, with a little tidal wave. Super awesome. The last figure is none other than teammate Earthquake. And he comes with Aftershock. So you're looking at Tidal Wave and Aftershock, and it's the exact same figure, exact same pose. No change to this. What was this guy's name? John something. John. Trying to think. I don't remember his name. But, and it doesn't say on the card either. Oh, kind of a backtrack real quick. There was a wrestler in WCW. I want to say Shockmaster was his name. And it's kind of funny. For years, I always thought that Earthquake was Shockmaster. And I was watching, Jason's video over on JP's World Wrestling. And he mentioned that Typhoon was Shockmaster. I'm like, really? All these years, I've had that stuff backwards. And it's kind of interesting because I guess on his first promotion, his first video, first episode, first appearance, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it was on WCW Nitro. I don't remember. Again, I didn't really watch WCW, outside of a few episodes here and there in the early 90s. Nothing in, mid to late 90s. And he was coming through, his mask came off, and they immediately identified him. So, you weren't really, you really weren't confusing anybody. Earthquake, when he returned to WWF, he had this Eric Cartman t-shirt portrayal with a mask on, but he would do the exact same thing he used to do. As Earthquake, his finisher was to kind of bounce around the ring, and then he would run against the ropes, bam bam, and then kind of sit on the person a little bit. It would be being crushed by a 450-pound man. I mean, it's lights out. You're not getting up from that. I think it was a Brother Love show, and it's one of those events where you kind of think about you want to yell at Hulk Hogan to stop coming onto the Brother Love show, because every time he does, it seems like somebody was absolutely destroying him. Undertaker would show up one day and tombstone him on the Brother Love show, or Earthquake would come in and destroy him and sit on him and just crush him and everything. I'm like, dude, you need to stay away from them. But he would still come here, and ridiculous. This is a beautiful figure. I absolutely love this one, and just because it's so glossy, and again, you've got the little seismographs on the singlet. It's an absolutely beautiful looking figure overall. And it's not like the head mold's it's the exact same person or anything. So I like that they really do a good job really identifying the character individually. But natural disasters. And again, he just has a simple, just like, Typhoon and a bunch of others. But Earthquake. So just kind of recap real quick. The third Ultimate Warrior, the second Brutus Beefcake, the third Macho Man, the third Hulk Hogan, the second Big Boss Man, Sergeant Slaughter, we got Greg Valentine, Typhoon, Earthquake, we have Mr. Perfect, Coco Ware, and Texas Tornado here in Series 3. So, I'm trying to think. Series 4 has 8 figures, so that should be done in one video. Series 5 has 10 figures, if I'm not mistaken. I'm probably going to try and stretch that out into one video. So you're probably looking at about a 40-minute video when I do Series 5. And, Series 6 and onward, I should still be able to fit them all into one video, because most of them hover between 6 figures, 8 figures, 10 figures. No, I think that's it. I think Series 5 is the last of the double digits. But that's it for now. That completes Series 3, and I'm wondering if there's anything else I can add into this video before I go. I'm looking around. That should be it. That's pretty much all to say about Series 3 for now. And there are a lot of storylines I kind of think about talking about when I'm coming down here to make the videos, and then once I'm down here talking about the figures, I completely forget about stuff. So maybe I'll eventually bring it back up during a later time, during another later review. But if you guys have any questions, or obviously I would always love to hear from you guys. So go ahead and leave a comment, and I will respond as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.